Mississippi welfare scandal involving former NFL star Brett Favre is still unfolding. Axios now reporting Favre has hired former Trump White House lawyer Eric Hirschman as his lead counsel. Favre is suspected of pressuring Mississippi government officials to spend millions of dollars in welfare funds on a volleyball center at the school where his daughter played the sport. And our next guest reports newly uncovered text messages show that the University of Southern Mississippi had concerns about the grant-funded volleyball facility. Favre personally received, in addition to that, over $1 million in welfare funds to give speeches that he never actually made.
Listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, back on the grill again. We grilling them, You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one, cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire, anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country to win. You need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Welcome to Reset Race, where water is wet and white people are welfare queens. So we gonna talk about Brett Favre in Mississippi and this misappropriation of TANF funds that are supposed to go to poor people. But when you look into this story, this is just a massive corruption scandal. And Brett Favre isn't the only one who was on the tip. It was a bunch of white people getting funds that were supposed to go to poor people. So we're going to kind of dive into this. I don't know exactly how we're going to go about it because this story is big and long. Like, please go to Mississippi Today. Anna Wolf is the person who did the 2 years research on the actual story. Please read like the 5 different reports that she's written on this because it's a lot. And I would love to cover all of it, but we'll be here for at least a couple of shows. And I don't know if y'all gonna care enough, but this shit is crazy, especially when you look at what's happening with the water crisis in Mississippi as well. Not saying that welfare funds are supposed to go towards fixing water, but if they're misappropriating welfare funds, what other funds are being misappropriated in this state? So I'm gonna start by say hi to the people, Morgan.
Okay, Morgan Malachi, aka Riley Freedman. Follow me on Twitter at CaliTastus. Let's get into it.
That's so funny. I didn't even bother to introduce myself, huh? I'm the Khaleesi, and that's it. Next up, John, Danny OC, back in the building.
What's up, fam? This is John C. I'm an average American Negro, and I'm back with my fam. We about to get into this Brett Favre thing, the misappropriation of welfare funds. And I guess I'll get into it more in the show, but just to let y'all know, just for a disclaimer, Brett Favre did enough pills to kill a baby elephant. That's how much drugs Brett Favre has done in his career. He popped enough pills to kill a baby giraffe. Don't ask me how I know about popping pills. Don't even get. I'll talk about that later. let's get into this. Is some bullshit. This is some bullshit. I'm happy to be here.
You know, I tell people all the time that I took 15 biking and ES at one time, and they're like, "That didn't knock you out?" And I said, "I did totally the opposite. I was up. And that's kind of the way with addictions too. I mean, what it's supposed to do, it doesn't. So when you take 2 pain pills, you're knocked out, and you don't feel pain. You wake up 4, 5, 6, 8 hours later. I would be up and just talking, and I didn't want to sleep until about 10 o'clock the next morning when we were in offensive meetings. It was about the only time I wanted to sleep.
Let's get to the show.
Next up, all hail King Killmonger.
All hail King Killmonger. Eastside Joey on Twitter. F Brett Favre. Let's get to it.
And last but not least, Mud.
Yeah, they call me Mud. You can find me on my social media @of lineage. That's Twitter and Instagram. I am the creator of Bitter Dose TV. Let's go and get into the show.
I'm Anna Wolf, Mississippi Today's poverty reporter, and I've been working on stories about the ever-unfolding welfare scandal in Mississippi. We published a survey on our website a couple weeks ago to let y'all ask some questions about the stories, and I wanted to take some time today to answer those for you. First, to give a little recap, the auditor's office arrested 6 people back in February of 2020, which included the former welfare director, John Davis, and nonprofit founder, Nancy New. In total, they were alleged to have stolen over $4 million from a federal program called Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF. After that, we broke some stories about welfare money being used to build a volleyball stadium at USM, to purchase a horse ranch for a famous athlete, and to invest in a pharmaceutical startup that Brett Favre was trying to get the governor at the time, Phil Bryant, to join in on. A few months later, in May of 2020, the auditor released his big audit outlining $94 million in misspending, which also included a $1.1 million payment directly to Brett Favre, according to the auditor, for speeches that he never gave. Later that year, in December of 2020, the first defendant out of the 6, Brett DiBiase, pleaded guilty. The criminal cases kept getting continued, and in October of 2021, independent auditors released their forensic audit, which questioned $77 million in TANF purchases. The nonprofit accountant also pleaded guilty that year. In April, we published our big investigation called the Backchannel, which included never-before-seen text messages between Brett Favre and former Governor Phil Bryant, which showed that Favre had told the governor that he was working with welfare officials to find funding for his pharmaceutical project, and Bryant agreeing to accept stock in the company just 2 days after he left office. Right after that series came out, Nancy New and her son both pleaded guilty to state charges, as well as federal charges in a separate federal case, and they got a pretty good deal in exchange for cooperating with prosecutors in the ongoing investigation. In May, DHS filed a civil suit against 38 people or companies in an attempt to recoup some of the misspent money, and in July there was a lot of activity in the case, with Nancy New alleging that Phil Bryant directed her to make payments to Brett Favre, and attorneys filing subpoenas that included communication with the former governor. DHS also fired the attorney bringing the case, and Tate Reeves recently said that the attorney was let go because he had a political agenda. Okay, now on to the questions. The first question is, what do things look like on the ground for those actually providing social services in Mississippi? What has been the community level impact of the misuse of these funds? So there were a lot of organizations who used to receive TANF grants for things like after school programs, tutoring, parenting classes, that kind of thing, and they're not receiving those grants anymore. So there are fewer services within that program, but it just depends on whether they were able to fill the gaps with other funding sources. But when this is really tragic, if I could explain, is when a parent has their kid taken away, they may be required by the court to go to parenting classes or anger management to actually get their kids back. And if there aren't any classes available in their area, or in an area where they're able to get transportation to, then they won't be able to meet that court requirement. So I visited Families First. This is the center through which most of the welfare misspending occurred, that Nancy New ran. And I visited periodically after the arrests. And the first time I went when they were closed, I tried to go in and there was a "sorry, we're closed" sign on the door. And I went out to the parking lot and there was a woman kind of angry and yelling outside of her friend's car. And I asked her what was going on, and she told me that she had come that day to the center to go to class because she was court ordered there and she needed to get her kids back. That's what she was telling me. And no one had told her that they had closed that day. She ended up getting back in the car and driving away, and I actually don't know what happened to her, but that just goes to show, how high stakes this stuff can be. It literally meant the difference between a parent getting their kid back or not.
Here,
The next question
let's
is,
pull it
I'm
down.
curious how the low.
And let's come back to that later, but I feel like that's like a good little start, right?
Oh my God.
There's a lot, right?
That was like so much shit going on. And then to bring it down to such a personal level, a parent not be like, a parent in a situation that is so traumatic, parent and child,
Mm-hmm.
and the parent trying to do the best or trying to do the right thing, and the system is the way the system has been corrupted, that they can't even fulfill the things that they were told to do to make things right. And these motherfuckers are just making deals where they are getting millions and millions of dollars, and somehow the people at the bottom are made out to be the fucking like the drags on society. They are the things that are causing so much destruction in our society. They are the people that we need to, like, I don't know, we need to deal with, because they are causing problems. And really it's these people at the top, it's the elite that are fucking everybody. And this is like so clear cut. It pisses me off because we got stigmatized with this whole welfare queen shit by Ronald Reagan, and this is what these motherfuckers is doing. They make it seem like you're such an evil person for needing assistance from the fucking government, and these motherfuckers are just, I don't even know what else to fucking say, because this is madness.
Nah, well, nah, you're right. This is some wild shit. As we all know, Mississippi is the poorest state in the country. And I'm pretty sure that per capita, that they have the most per capita, not number, but percentage-wise, they probably have the most people on welfare per capita in the country. And this is the funny part of Mississippi. Mississippi is the first, they'll be the first state, the governor and the state senate be the first people to deny federal funding for welfare funds. They'd be like, no, we'll deny that. We're gonna deny that. So remember, they denied, I think Mississippi was trying to deny Medicaid expansion, shit like that. We know Obamacare was shit, but it's just funny in the motherfucker just to see how, man, the federal funds that they did get to help out, like the most deprived people in the state, to see that the people at the top level are really taking these federal funds and embezzling them, stealing them, and then try to point the finger at poor people, like, stop being poor, like, it's Mississippi, like. And I think that also goes back to our Reconstruction episode where the boy said that, the white people, they picked, instead of a class solidarity, they picked their racism over the class solidarity. They put their anti-Black American hate over class solidarity. That's what they picked. And I think this is just the aftermath of the shit. So, at the end of the day, You know, it is. I know it's going to get darker. It's going to get more terrible shit. When Brett Favre come in popping bottles, you're going to see Brett Favre on the computer for 10 days straight popping pills. It's going to get crazy, man. It's going to get crazy, but yeah, that's really all I got. It's not a surprise that the top level people of Mississippi are embezzling welfare funds. Like, it's sad to see. It's kind of shocking, but it's not surprising. And that's all I got.
Anybody else before we, because I think I want to switch to the article from there, and maybe we'll come back to more of the questions. But I just think that was a good intro. Bill Biden has his sights on a payout as welfare funds flow to Brett Favre. And then text messages obtained by Mississippi Today reveal NFL quarterback Brett Favre briefed Governor Bryant about the flow of state grant funds of his experimental drug project, a deal that was shielded from the public view. Bryant was all set to accept stock in the company. Hours after he left office, then arrests were made. So she was basically just talking about this, but this is going to go in depth. So you can hit the play button up there.
Former Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant used the authority of his office, the weight of his political influence, and the power of his connections to help his friend and retired NFL quarterback Brett Favre boost a fledgling pharmaceutical venture. Then he tried to cash in on the project when he left office, text messages show. Favre believed he could make millions as an early investor in a drug company. He just needed a little more political and financial capital to push the enterprise into the end zone. It's third and long, and we need you to make it happen. Favre wrote to the governor in late December 2018, according to text messages recently obtained by Mississippi Today. I will open a hole, Bryant responded, piggybacking on the football metaphor. Less than a week later, Favre would meet with Bryant's welfare officials to strike a deal for a $1.7 million investment in the biomedical startup Favre, which promised it had found a treatment for concussions. Prosecutors now say that money was stolen from a federal program intended to serve the state's poorest residents, a pot of money that had virtually no oversight. Bryant said he did not introduce Favre to Nancy New, the nonprofit director who made the payments, and now faces bribery, racketeering, and embezzlement charges. But newly uncovered text messages show that, at the very least, Favre told Bryant that New had started funneling public funding to the drug company shortly after he began advocating on its behalf. As governor, Bryant assisted Favre, the company at the center of Mississippi's ongoing welfare embezzlement scandal, in finding investors and gaining favor with federal regulators. Then, 2 days after he left office, Bryant agreed by text to accept stock in the company. Now that you're unemployed, I'd like to give you a company package for all your help, Favre's founder Jake Van Landingham wrote in a January 16, 2020, text. We want and need you on our team. Sounds good, responded the former governor, who was getting ready to take over a private sector lobbying firm. Where would be the best place to meet? I am now going to get on it hard. In a 3-hour-long interview with Mississippi Today on April 2nd, Bryant said that despite the timeline revealed through the candid messages, which he acknowledged doesn't look good, he never intended on accepting stock in Favre and did not read his texts carefully enough to pick up on the fact that the company had received public funding in the first place. I should have caught that, and I just simply didn't, Bryant said. Less than 3 weeks after the Get On It Hard text, the Office of State Auditor Shad White, a Bryant appointee and Bryant's former campaign manager, arrested New and John Davis, former director of the Mississippi Department of Human Services. Prosecutors allege they conspired to steal welfare funds, including $2.15 million that New allegedly funneled to Favre. After the splashy...
I'm sorry, just for a second. Do y'all remember when them black teachers in Atlanta all went to jail on RICO because of some scandal with them changing the little students' grades and shit? Why aren't these motherfuckers getting hit with RICO charges?
Good evening. There's no harder lesson than the one taught today to 8 Atlanta educators by an angry judge after they were convicted on charges typically reserved for mobsters. He threw the book at them, teachers, principals among them. handing down lengthy prison sentences for their roles in a massive cheating scandal in which standardized test scores at underperforming schools were inflated. The judge told them the conspiracy harmed thousands of children. Our chief education correspondent, Rahima Ellis, shows us how it all played out.
This thing was pervasive. It's like the sickest thing that's ever happened to this town.
In a tense courtroom, Judge Jerry Baxter imposed harsh sentences on 8 former Atlanta public school educators convicted of racketeering, conspiring to fix standardized test scores to improve results.
There were thousands of children that were harmed in this thing. This is not a victimless crime.
3 disgraced educators, former teachers and administrators, were sentenced to 20 years, serving 7 in prison, the rest on probation.
At New Rochelle High School, investigators say at least 2 members of the class of 2018 graduated even though they didn't have enough credits. After Assistant Principal Shadia Alvarez changed grades to passing in an online instruction system for students trying to make up classes they'd failed. Tuesday night at the school board meeting, Shadia Alvarez denied any wrongdoing.
And so I asked that this board look at the report. I will be looking at it and trying to figure out how this happened.
New Rochelle says it is also reviewing hiring practices after damaging revelations about Shadia Alvarez's previous work as a principal in New York City. The city schools investigator recommended Alvarez be placed on a do not hire list after substantiating misconduct related to expenses and work hours. A year later, she landed a job in New Rochelle, making more than $150,000 a year.
That breathtaking college entrance scam, $25 million, 50 people charged. You saw that. Felicity Huffman, Lori Loughlin have been charged as well. We've seen test administrators charged, coaches at elite private schools.
The bust is called Operation Varsity Blues, and the accusations range from paying thousands of dollars for higher SAT scores to presenting students as top athletes in sports they never even played.
It is a little enraging. Some were even accused of faking disabilities, faking ethnicity so that their children could get special privileges while taking the test, all to get their kids into these top-tier schools like Yale and Stanford.
And it is raising a big debate about college admissions in general, whether the whole system is rigged for those who have wealth and privilege.
That's what I'm saying. That needs to be the new thing. You need to start hitting the same way you get these drug dealers. And like, it just seems, if it's not the Italian mafia, it seems like it only works for Black people.
That's it.
But is this going to be the new excuse? I should have caught that. I simply didn't. But I simply didn't. When you're talking about text messages, like, I didn't read it carefully enough.
So this is as bad as it was me. But I looked in your face. It was me. That's pretty much what he was saying with these things. Like,
it wasn't me. The money in the tower. It was me. You took the welfare money. It was me. You get that money.
Man, I'll play some more. Y'all got anything? But hit him with the Rico.
It just doesn't seem like anyone should be able to do this and feel comfortable about like doing text messages about type of shit like this. Like, isn't there some shit you're supposed to like meet in a fucking like empty car lot and keep your phone in the car and y'all talk after you walk like some distance away from your car on like some straight mafia type shit? Like, isn't that supposed to be how this type of business is handled? But these motherfuckers are just acting like this is like an everyday thing.
Brett Favre obviously didn't watch The Wire.
Because
I'm saying the governor didn't, like, the governor doesn't know better than this. Like, no one involved knew better than, like, we can't just do it like this. This is just so fucking blatant.
Brett Favre's a dumb motherfucker, ain't he? Brett Favre gave all the evidence. If Brett Favre's dumb ass would have been texting, I don't think people would know as much as they know.
I swear.
All right, anybody else, y'all? Oh, did I really just do that? I did do that, didn't I? So, all right, I'm gonna play some more. When y'all ready, let me know to stop. But yeah, like I said, we just started the article.
Indictments. Bryant appeared surprised to learn that the pharmaceutical firm had received federal welfare funds. 5 days later, he cut ties with the company. Bryant's backchannel maneuvering, uncovered by Mississippi Today's investigation, raises questions about the governor's personal agenda and influence over his welfare officials, which auditors say misspent at least $77 million in funds that were supposed to assist the state's poorest residents. Mississippi Today has reviewed hundreds of pages of written communication, which are reprinted here exactly as they appear without correction, between Governor Bryant and his associates. The trove of messages gives an indication of how far Bryant would go to help his friend Favre, who was trying to tap the state for resources to make himself a profit or to resemble a charitable alumnus of the University of Southern Mississippi. Even after the auditor's investigation into agency misspending forced the former welfare chief out of office, the new MDHS director told Mississippi Today that the governor called him to meet with Favre for possible funding opportunities. Officials have not accused Bryant, Favre, or Van Landingham of a crime. Davis and New, on the other hand, have pleaded not guilty and could face several years in prison, up to 10 years for Davis and hundreds of years for New, if convicted on all counts. Taxpayers in Mississippi have nothing to show for their investment, which was supposed to pay for safety studies in the development of a new drug that still hasn't materialized. What's worse, state taxpayers will likely be on the hook to pay back all or some of the many tens of millions of dollars misspent in this overarching welfare scheme. Van Landingham has since sold his idea for the medication to Odyssey Group International, an acquisition company the scientist said he is now working with to conduct clinical trials for the drug. Pervacus, meanwhile, has gone dormant.
Wait, what? Wow. So all that money went down a well and now that company is defunct.
And taxpayers in Mississippi are supposedly on the hook for this. So where are like the Republicans running around screaming about, this? Isn't it supposed to be their issue?
Yes.
The bigger story. Go ahead, Morgan.
Yeah, spending. But, listening to this, I have a feeling that this is not the first time. Because we can look at our people in Mississippi and see their conditions. So if we dig, probably find a lot more of this.
But shit, there's white people in Mississippi too now. So why
Poor
are they
white
fucking
people
losing their minds?
There's 4 white people in Mississippi.
But I told y'all about Glenore, Mississippi, the literal Peonage County. It's on the Cotton Picking Truth on Amazon. Like that is real down there. So
when someone come to me and say, I didn't get my freedom until 1965, I believe them because I've seen the index at the National Archives that said peonage cases to 1973.
I'm here at the National Archives located in Washington, D.C. in College Park. What you're looking at in these boxes here, these are what you call the peonage files. Many of these files was filed by the NAACP to the Department of Justice. So each one of these boxes would represent different states. There was 13 states that I filed peonage.
I want to call your attention to a part of the USA that has between 300 to 500 Negroes bound in slavery, according to information I received from a colored woman that escaped there Tuesday. She said that the boss man slapped her and she tried to resist him, and he hit her with a blackjack and broke her arm in 5 places, and it had to be taken off. It is off smooth to the shoulder. And this man is called Captain Boss. He has a big house with about 10 big fat Negro men that do not work, just stay in this big house. The boss man makes the women go there and stay with these men 3 days, whether they want to or not. This man handles these people like they are cattle or hogs. This boss man mates these Negroes just like a farmer does his animals.
And in some counties and parishes, the sheriff, the constable, all of them worked together. So they had no outlet to talk to anyone about peonage.
You remember me telling you that my father tried to run away?
Yes.
and he ran through the woods. And when he ran up on the highway, he ran into some white people's in a buggy or a truck or something. And he had been beaten. And he said, I got to get away. They said, boy, where are you going? He said, I don't know. I got a wife and children back there, but I've had all I can take.
So
I got to go somewhere.
He was going to leave the family because it was too much.
It was too much.
A man who loved his wife, a man who loved his children, who would die for his children, he was willing to leave his family.
He was willing to leave his family. He said that the white men told him, boy, I know somewhere we're going to take you. We're going to take you and enroll you in Uncle Sam's earning. And my father said he was so relieved. They put him in that back of that wagon or whatever they had, laid him down. He said, and when he arose, he thought they had him where they had carried him, supposed to be after he run to help him get away. And he rode back on the plantation.
Did they beat him?
They beat him and beat him some more. They brought him back to the plantation, said, here this boy, he was trying to run away.
I am handing you a letter from a darky, which is rather difficult to read, but which refers to the forced detention of a family on the plantation of Mr. Sel Jones, at or near Shockey, Mississippi. I will state that within the past month, at least 5 Negroes have been to me with pitiful tales as to the way they have been beaten up, leaving their families on this place. It looks as if peonage was practiced on this place to quite an extent, and if your department could make an investigation, I believe you would unearth a bad condition there. Earl Brewer, Governor.
From the early 1900s, there were thousands of complaints of peonage to the FBI, NAACP, Justice Department, local sheriffs, attorney generals, and 5 presidents. Hundreds of thousands of reports were filed cataloging a range of abuses throughout the southern United States.
Another nice little case of peonage down here at Sebastopol, in the form of a 16-year-old half-white Negro boy, an orphan out of Vicksburg, who, seeking employment, fell into the hands of Mr. Nick Lang and his boys. 3 times this boy has run away from him, seeking to become free, but is pursued and captured and overtaken wherever he may go. This unfortunate boy tells us that he has been several times beaten by one of the Langs, with his clothes taken off. Now, gentlemen, if a man comes down spreading his great mission to the 4 winds, the facts may never be known. A nest of kinfolks here will soon let you know that hell is an ice house when you seek to investigate slavery and moonshining and bootlegging. If we had one federal officer in this part of Mississippi who himself was sober and honest, a land office business would be done here capturing the bootleggers and moonshiners about Sebastopol also. If the Negro boy is taken and carried off away from them, he will relate facts to you that will make you know he is just a plain, open-door Negro slave, serving his time in bonds to a dominating master.
There was a lot of white people that wrote letters on behalf of black people that was not in agreement with some of what they saw. And they was risking their lives too.
I mean, when you got people on these massive plantations with 5-amp watt electric in these literal slave shacks, yeah, you could probably spend 77 mil on a white man scam. Forget any poor white person in Mississippi, because our people are literally still on plantations.
Let's be real. The Republicans are all talk. Like, most of the shit they say is just like some, it's like it's cover.
Yeah.
They always, turn a blind eye when, white elites are doing shit. Like, even when poor white people are doing this type of shit, they always turn a blind eye. But as soon as black people are the motherfuckers in the mix of some shit, then they want to make it seem like it's the worst thing that has ever happened in all of humanity.
Where's all the tax dollars people?
My tax dollars ain't going to them niggers. But it's going to that volleyball stadium for a rich white girl because her daddy worth 131 million and he using poor ass people money so she can have a nice ass place to play volleyball for 4 years.
Hey Sam, can you?
Must be white.
That's crazy. And like, can we just be real? Like, I look at Mississippi, like, to be honest with you, for a long time, we all know that Mississippi is the poorest state in the country. And we also know that Mississippi is the most racist state in the country. We all know this shit. So y'all didn't get it. I just don't, Mississippi is just poor because they're backward. Like, yo, if you want to see how America was in 1955 Jim Crow, go to Mississippi right now. If you're not from Mississippi. People that's from Mississippi, you're gonna be like, oh shit. And it's still the blackest state in the country. And that's the poorest state in the country. How are people not putting these correlations together? So when these rich elites from Mississippi, these motherfuckers descend from slave owners, straight up and down. The poor whites descend from the slave catchers, or some of the poor whites actually descend from the people who were working on the fields next to us that were indentured servants, but they still had a little up on top of the slave. That's Mississippi for you. The shit that we talking about, that's Mississippi. So if you don't fix Mississippi, then you feel me? Like, I feel like Mississippi is like the should be the standard for the country. So if Mississippi ain't doing good, that means the country ain't doing good. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the reason why we got this big ass fucking water crisis in Jackson right now. They drinking sludge right now. Like, if him, like, this is like the most horrible, this is worse than Flint type shit. These people were drinking like it's sewage water coming up. We know about Lowndes County, Alabama. We know about Flint. We know about all the lead across all the the northern and the western and the midwestern states. But Mississippi been fucked up. Everybody know that shit fucked up, and nobody wants to do nothing to fix this shit. And people, So I mean, it just all, to me, that shit all just connects to like the anti-black racism. Like, the most anti-black state in the country is the poorest state. It is a state where Brett Favre can really embezzle welfare money and not be called, this shit is fucking nuts, nigga. A fucking Hall of Fame quarterback embezzled welfare money, government money. That they always talking about, oh no, niggas should not get no government money. No, the lazy, no, the poor shit, you gotta work hard. They literally, those people that really be talking about this shit all day on TV, got that government, this is welfare money. This is housing money, assistance money. Got that money, embezzled it to go build stadiums and then push shit in their bank account to build, you feel me, to prop up companies that failed. And everybody like, well, made a mistake. People wonder why our country fucked up. So I feel like we could fix Mississippi. That might be a good start to fixing the country.
All right, we're gonna keep going. Since they're gonna get into how this shit all started. How it happened was
2014, Favre began working with Van Landingham to find backers for a new concussion treatment drug that the Florida neuroscientist had in the works. Van Landingham, who launched Prevacus in 2012, said he had developed a nasal medication called Prevacol that would reduce harmful brain swelling and inflammation after impact to the head, as well as a preventative topical cream. For years, Favre has raised public awareness about the epidemic of concussions, which he suffered from himself, but his conversations with the scientist about Prevacol revolved more around him making money. He once said by text that his goal was to walk away with $20 million. The NFL legend from Kiln, Mississippi, invested nearly $1 million of his own money into Prevacus, he told Men's Health magazine, but by 2018, with no physical product to speak of, he was becoming more desperate to get the pharmaceutical project off the ground. The athlete had an idea. Favre sent Van Landingham a phone number for the governor, a great guy, good friend, and told him to reach out. They spoke the next day, and Van Landingham congratulated Favre on his networking. Great call with the governor, Van Landingham texted in late November 2018. He's going to make some key connections for us to start with FDA. Good job. Don't know if legal or not, but we need cut him in, Favre responded, followed 3 days later by another idea. Also, if legal, give some of my shares to the governor. In their earliest conversations, and on Favre's suggestion, Van Landingham attempted to entice Bryant with company stock. But instead of asking the governor to make a personal investment, Van Landingham offered Bryant shares in exchange for his help in connecting Purvekas with potential investors and carving paths to the nation's drug regulation agency. We want you to know we want you on the team and can offer stock. We don't know the rules, but are willing to do what is needed to bring you on board, Van Landingham texted to Bryant in a group message with Favre on December 6, 2018, a few weeks before their first meeting. Grateful for your help. Late 2018. Van Landingham, Favre, Bryant, and others met for dinner at Walker's Drive-In in Jackson the day after Christmas in 2018. Bryant brought along New Orleans-based venture capitalist and developer Joe Cannizzaro, who had already started working with the governor on a real estate development and medical corridor on the Mississippi Gulf Coast called Tradition. Bryant is listed as vice president for the company Cannizzaro formed to develop the residential neighborhood called the Village at Tradition. Bryant considers the development part of his legacy as governor. A nursing school built there during his administration is named in his honor. The concept was for Purvekas to locate its clinical trial site and eventually the drug manufacturing plant at Tradition, in turn boosting workforce and economic development for the state. However, the plans and proposals Purvekas drafted and sent to the governor's office did not include projections related to job creation. Even if they had, that would be a project for the state's Economic Development Agency. In 2020, Mississippi Today requested all communication from Mississippi Development Authority related to Purvekas or Van Landingham for this time period. The agency said none existed. Instead, the financing would eventually flow through the Department of Human Services, which was increasingly contorting its mission to whatever they could call workforce development. The morning after their dinner, Van Landingham sent a message in the group text thanking the governor for all you're doing for us. You're the man, the scientist wrote. So glad y'all were here, the governor responded. We have our orders and we are moving ahead. We'll keep you informed. Favre then texted the touchdown analogy and Bryant promised to act as their lineman. The next day, Favre sent Van Landingham the contact information for Nancy New, founder of the nonprofit Mississippi Community Education Center, and instructed the scientist to text her. At the time, New's nonprofit was on the receiving end of an unprecedented cash flow from the Mississippi Department of Human Services, the public assistance agency run by Bryant's appointee John Davis. The agency gave New more than $60 million in contracts to run the now disgraced anti-poverty program called Families First for Mississippi. The money primarily came from a federal grant called Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, known for providing the welfare check to very poor families. Independent auditors found that New's nonprofit blew at least $12.2 million and have been unable to trace an additional $40 million that it spent. New and Davis are both awaiting trial in what officials regard as the largest public embezzlement scheme in state history. Favre was at least somewhat knowledgeable about the sizable grants New controlled and the flexibility around spending them, his text messages show. In the 2 years before this, New's nonprofit had already paid $1.1 million in grant funds to Favre, which the state auditor demanded he repay to promote the Families First program. The nonprofit also, at the football players' request, paid $5 million to Southern Miss Athletic Foundation so it could build a volleyball stadium at the university, Favre's alma mater, and where his daughter played volleyball. Auditors say both of these payments violated federal regulations, though neither have resulted in criminal charges. Text Nancy and include me if you want and basically ask her if she can help with investors, grants, or any other way possible. Favre texted in.
So why are there no criminal charges?
All I kept hearing is conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy.
Yo, they phone line hot. They like, yo, how can we take the drug? How can we take the federal money and put it in my account? They talking about some wild shit all the time. Like, I want the federal money. I want the money. I want to be able to take this illegal money and make it legal. How do I do that? This shit is in plain text. They like, he made a mistake. Brett Favre made a mistake. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Lock him the fuck up. My bad.
Quickly. Come on, Morgan. You the judicious nigga.
I mean, it's obvious, right? Like conspiracy to sell drugs get you more time than nobody got any time. I mean, for me, it resonated, okay, the federal government still doesn't have power over these states, and they never did. So they're not going to piss these white boys off. And that's just the bottom line.
Brett Favre need to be in somebody's federal penitentiary. This is ridiculous. Like, I don't know if it's legal or not, but we need to get him on the team. He's supposed to be in jail for that sentence alone. How many of them YSL niggas sitting in jail ain't stole not a dime of federal money?
Hey, listen, the DA in Atlanta said it's a well-known rapper who's telling. You get caught and you got a threat of getting sent out the country because you ain't a real citizen. We trying to figure it out. The bitch trying to say I'm gay, so we got to figure out your shit. Maybe the bitch right, maybe she wrong. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. So we can take a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't give a fuck how long, and we can figure this shit out every day on the internet. I ain't tripping. Hey, I ain't tripping.
Man, look, y'all crazy.
Did you catch a gun? How long it been? 18 months? How long it been?
Man, come on, bro. What the hell?
Hey, bro, hey, listen.
What the fuck, bro?
Hey, bro, what you mean?
Damn.
It's actually been
Because
3 years.
obviously you ain't going to court because you was going to court. Every time you go to court, they gonna let us know you going to court. So
I can't go to court for immigration if I got an open gun case.
What about the gun case? Bullshit.
I can't go to court for immigration if I got an open gun case.
They will give you your time, let you serve your time, then deport your ass.
Hey, look.
I was doing time before you got off the porch.
Hey, look.
We have new developments in the gang crackdown involving rapper Young Thug. Police arrested more than 24 people, including the artist, and accused them of running a violent gang.
Ain't killed nobody, ain't did nothing. They was just a part of the group text. But somehow Brett Favre, he just out here living his best life, living significantly better than I am right now. And I ain't committing no crimes. Other than being black, of course.
Ooh, worth 131 million. Out here doing strange things for some change. You need to go to jail.
Like, you didn't have any rich friends that you could talk to about putting money into your concussion drug. How the fuck are you, like, who?
Brett fucking Favre. You're Brett fucking Favre.
He did, though. He had the governor's phone number. That was his rich friend.
And the government ain't even give him, like, yo, this is some wild shit. He ain't even give him none of his personal bread for this shit. Like, they just said, we're going to go and get the money out the fucking welfare fund. Like, what?
Fuck the poors.
And not even for anything that's like closely related to welfare. They're talking about concussion drugs. What?
And volleyball stadiums.
You couldn't get NFL niggas to like team up to invest in a concussion drug?
You would think, right?
Shit, go to the NFL.
Countless concussions led to an historic settlement today, with the NFL expected to pay out over $750 million to brain-damaged players. But is it enough? And is the true toll of those crowd-pleasing hits hidden by this deal?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you got to know at least a couple people that might be interested.
Man, if that was Dante Culpepper, you understand the feds would have body slammed Dante Culpepper.
Dante would have been in jail.
Donovan McNabb would have got Donovan McNabb. Don't talking this shit talking about you. He talking to Philly black politicians like you. Give me that food stamp money. They would have body slammed Donovan McNabb, man. They would have found him. He would have been under a federal penitentiary right now. But
not only that, they were fucking try to take their fucking houses and like all their fucking assets. Like
they
his
take
whole
their
family.
grandmama house.
Exactly. It'd be the whole family that would be, you know what I'm saying? This is some wild ass shit, yo.
So y'all telling me this crackhead done stole the food stamp money and spent it on some bullshit. How we get hit with this stereotype? That belongs to the whites. Y'all earn this one.
Oh my God, y'all. All right, it keeps going. This is the first article. This is the first article that she wrote. There's more. It's like those old infomercials, but wait, there's more. I'm telling you. Like, oh my God.
She has strong connections and gave me $5 million for ball facility via grant money. Offer her whatever you feel like. She may can help, but won't hurt to ask. Look her up. She has a facility called Family First in Jackson. For at least 2 years prior to this, Favre and Van Landingham had texted back and forth, at some points almost daily, and most of their conversations revolved around brainstorming prospective investors and funding sources. But it wasn't until 2 days after their meeting with the governor that Favre connected the scientist with New. Just weeks earlier, Bryant had given New the governor's prestigious Mississippi Meritorious Civilian Service Award. Hey Nancy, I'm friends and colleagues with Brett Favre, then Landingham texted New. We are working with the governor to bring some human trial sites and drug manufacturing to MS. Not sure if we can find some synergy, but would love to find out. After an initial conversation, then Landingham expressed high confidence in New. I'm going to venture out on a limb and say of all the times you've helped me, the key contact that gets us over the top will end up being Nancy New. THX brother, she's great, he wrote to Favre. Favre told Van Landingham he believed New and Davis, the director of Mississippi Department of Human Services, would use federal grant funds for Provacus. January 2019. A few days later, Favre hosted a meeting at his house to introduce Van Landingham to New and Davis. In a calendar entry obtained by Mississippi Today, Davis wrote that the governor and Favre requested the meeting, which was originally to take place at New's office. But due to bad weather preventing a flight from Hattiesburg to Jackson, texts show, Davis and New drove to the football player's South Mississippi mansion instead. During the January 2nd, 2019 meeting, the group struck a deal for New to direct some of her nonprofit's grant funding to aid Provacus in its drug development, according to texts and interviews. From then on, Van Landingham referred to the funding he received from New as Mississippi grant funding, not a private donation or investment. Van Landingham told Mississippi Today he always understood New and Davis were helping Provacus obtain public money, and that he thought of New as a representative of the state. The idea was that the state of Mississippi was getting involved, and MCC, Mississippi Community Education Center, is the arm that signed the contract, Van Landingham said recently. The goal was and still is to conduct clinical trials and bring new biotech ventures to Mississippi. The day after the meeting at Favre's house, Van Landingham texted the governor to let him know how well it went. Governor, we had a great meeting with Nancy New and John Davis. We are excited to be working together, he said. Thanks. The governor didn't express surprise to hear they'd met. Very good, the governor said. Days later, Bryant set up a call for Van Landingham with Rick Santorum, former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania and failed presidential candidate, who said he would contact the second in command of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on behalf of Provacus, according to a text message from Van Landingham to Favre. After the call with Santorum, Van Landingham thanked the governor. You did great by us, my brother, Van Landingham wrote to the governor. Had to open a hole, sick, in the line. Bryant said. It was wide enough for even Favre to walk through, the scientist responded. The NFL star also texted with Santorum, who told the athlete he was excited about the project and getting the chance to work with great folks like you and Jake, according to a text screenshot Favre sent Van Landingham. In mid-January, Favre suggested lavishing New and Bryant's welfare director in exchange for the funding Mississippi's welfare agency was providing them. This all works out, we need to buy her and John Davis, surprise him with a vehicle. I thought maybe John Davis, we could get him a Raptor, Favre texted Van Landingham, referring to the souped-up Ford F-150.
Hey, okay.
Asked his partner when
I got you. Give me 1 second. I got you.
Did Brett Favre just talk to some government officials and some other high ups that had control of federal funding? And somewhere down the line in the conversation, he said that we should buy somebody an F-150 with this new welfare money. This is crazy. And like the fact that they were like, oh, he messed up. He literally just said, look, let's buy somebody in. You need to buy him an F-150 with the money. What? What? Okay.
It's like you just signed a record deal and got jerked.
That was crazy. It's like, yo, we gotta get him a car. We gotta get a little Lolo. We gotta get him a car. We gotta get him a low rider. We gotta get everybody some jewelry. Yo, he was like, let's buy him a new F-150 with federal money, with welfare money. This shit is absurd. This shit is crazy, man. This shit is crazy, and nobody, and like it's just the double standard of like, like thinking like if this was a black person, especially if this was a Black American person, same status too. Hall of Fame quarterback, Black American, somebody like Terrell Owens was doing this shit, or Shannon Sharp did the same shit, man. Do you understand? Even if they was like, the money protected him, you know damn well all the white people in America be like, that's how the Negroes are. For some reason with Brett Favre, it's like, oh, he messed up. He messed up. He tried to embezzle millions of dollars of federal. This is embezzlement. He's breaking, fuck state law. Fuck. He's breaking federal law right now. He should be in a maximum security federal prison right now for this shit. This is top embezzlement at the highest level. And everybody's like, you know, he popped some Vicodins, he ain't know what happened. I'm like, the fuck you mean? The fuck you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like Negroes, you know what I mean? Like poor Negroes all the time, they just be high, minding their business, trying to survive poverty. You'll body slam him and you'll kill him. If he not at the right place at the right time, you'll kill him. But Brett Favre, he embezzling welfare money. Yeah, it's all good. I'm sorry, this is my bad. This is crazy. That's all. This is crazy, Shannon. You know it's crazy. You know it's crazy, sis. That shit's nuts.
Hey, wrap Rick Santorum up in that RICO charge.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and because I know it doesn't look like he did anything so drastically bad so far, but like that's how it goes with us. We can just be in the mix, and now we you know what I'm saying. So yeah, let's get them all.
That's a conspiracy. Anybody in these chains, in these phone calls, y'all got to go to jail.
This shit is wild. Like, wow. And Brett Favre is like chilling at his house right now.
I don't understand why he couldn't pull himself up by the bootstraps if he just wanted to be in on this drug so bad. I mean, the nigga got money. And these are the things that they tell us to do, right? Like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, establish your own thing. Don't go for handouts from the government. Just do you. Even if you're born in poverty, this man is one of the wealthiest people on earth. He ain't in the 1%, but compared to everybody else, he might as well be. But like this speaks to that incestuous, well, not incestuous, but like kind of disgusting relationship athletes have with like government. Like if you're one of their favorite athletes, you get like a ridiculous amount of access. And this is how we get like cities and states like paying for stadiums for fucking sports ball teams. And guess what? Even though your tax dollars pay for that stadium, you still got to pay to get in every time they play. And just like Mississippi's tax dollars paid for this drug, you ain't gonna get that for free neither. They just robbing us.
Shit, if you can afford to get in that goddamn stadium.
Facts. Ooh, this is wild. And again, remember, they locked up teachers for changing test scores or for helping kids cheat on tests. It was one or the other. Hit them with the RICO. Teachers. They didn't steal no money. Anybody else, if not, I'd go back to playing.
Why is the governor such a groupie? Oh, I opened a hole for you, Mr. Favre. It's 4th and long.
All right.
But I'm saying, Brett Favre ain't never really struck me as the sharpest tool in the shed. How you let him like honeypot you into doing some illegal shit? And you're a governor.
But you gotta understand, you're right though. It's Brett Favre though. You know what I'm saying? It's Brett Favre. So, you know, everybody know who Brett Favre is. Brett Favre was a Hall of Fame quarterback. He you know, tough quarterback. You know, I respected the way he played, but I don't respect this shit though. Like, I'm like, damn, Brett Favre, you stealing money from the welfare fund? Morgan, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't sell your Super Bowl ring. You couldn't sell some of your equipment, man. You know, this white people will buy
He's
your
worth
jersey.
$131 million. He didn't need to sell shit.
Exactly. So why would somebody like Brett Favre feel like he has the ability to use government to tap into his high ups in the government to tap into money, in the federal money to fund his project and not his own project, and feel like that's okay?
Didn't somebody in this group say this wasn't the first time? He probably got money before all of this too.
That's crazy. You're right.
That's why he felt so comfortable. Somebody had to tell him they could get access to the welfare money. He ain't smart enough to just think ahead.
Yeah, they was talking about it. They was talking about it. He had that relationship with that new woman. She paid him like $1 million to do some
the speeches.
Yeah, the speeches, and then she also helped him get the volleyball thing for his daughter and shit. So he saw that and he was like, "Well, fuck it, let me just go ahead and get some of this government money since like this is the game." But he knew what it was because he wouldn't have said, "I don't know if this is legal or not." He knew this shit was not right.
Oh yeah, but he didn't care because he was getting his money.
But welfare funding, like what? Like he had he has what does he have? What is it? Is that 6 figures? What is it? 8 figures or 10 figures? Like, and he still feels like, you know what? I'm not going to tap into my own resources like you're supposed to do in America. And get it for you. Feel me? Like you're supposed to use your money and flip it. That's what they always say. Get your money from the dirt, flip that, and then you can do. He was like, "Nah, I got my own money. I'm going to tap into government, not even state money, federal money, to go about my project." And this shit is fucking crazy. Like, and nobody's making a hoopla about it. Nobody's fucking crying about it. Everybody like, "Oh, you know, Brett Favre, you know, he made a mistake." Like, come on, man.
No, Brett Favre should be in jail.
Sorry. Yeah, but this is what the bootstrappers need to hear. All these bootstrappers that trying to shame Black people because you spent $200 on some sneakers. You should have bought some stock. No, motherfucker. Yep. This is how the rich white people get rich.
They sit on top of their money, and then they find other money. You feel me? Like they sit on top of their money and they use that money to get in a position to steal more money.
And most of the time they're stealing it from the government. That's how they getting their fucking money.
Yeah, it seems like we just gotta wait for somebody to snitch. Right about now, I think that's what it is. Somebody's gonna snitch, though.
They don't even snitch. They got the text.
Yeah, there's enough here. Like, yo,
hey, boy, why do y'all?
I mean, we already know it. They love the testimonies.
I'm just saying, like, it's like rappers are getting caught up because of like DJ Vlad interviews and fucking Instagram posts, but like they got the text messages where these motherfuckers are really just cutting the deals, like saying it blatantly, and we acting like there's nothing that can be done about this shit. Like we need someone else, like we need more evidence. Like what the fuck else do we need? Like, this is it. This is the smoking gun.
You need some Black people to lock up. Ain't locking up the white people. Even the new chick, she won't do any state jail time. If she has to do federal, she'll do federal time, but she won't do any state time. That was part of her deal that she cut.
I think they should all be held liable for any families they may have interrupted from getting their services, especially those families who were dealing with child services and couldn't get their kids back because they cut the programs. Like, that is horrible.
That's the worst part of it, because they're not going to even attempt to look and see like what damage was really caused by this and like what should be done to actually fix those situations. I mean, at the most, what they would do is lock up like one of these people, you know, and then the rest of these people are going to go away scot-free. And then they're not going to even look at anything else that happened because of this shit.
Yeah, she gets into that deeper in the articles. That's why I said this is a deep well. I was like, we might have to do a multi-parter because there's a lot more to this. And that's basically what happens. Just a few people. All right. Y'all ready? Want me to keep playing?
But I'm saying it's not like this shit is like completely over. Like they can't come back and like come after these motherfuckers.
No, as long as there's not a statute of limitations. But it's
I'm
still
saying like, so they should be able to like arrest these motherfuckers. Like they should be able to arrest Brett Favre tomorrow for this shit.
They should. And I think if there was more public outcry, maybe they would. Because, remember, no, I don't want to compare those things. But, sometimes with our stuff, it just takes a while. It takes a little extra public outcry and then the ball gets moving. Because people normally just like to hush things up and keep it pushing. But Brett Favre should go to jail. He won't be the first football player to go to jail or ex-football player to go to jail.
This all works out. We need to buy her and John Davis, surprise him with a vehicle. I thought maybe John Davis, we could get him a Raptor. Favre texted Ben Landingham, referring to the souped-up Ford F-150. Favre then asked his partner when he thought they would start earning money. The scientists said they could start selling equity shares to the public in under a year, and the goal was for them to own 30% of the company by that time. The governor/Nancy/Joe can be key in bringing us funds in for project development and not diluting our percentage ownership, Ben Landingham wrote. The next day, Ben Landingham texted Governor Bryant a series of updates, including that Prevacus was working with Nancy New on funding its first phase of trials. Great report, Bryant responded. We will get this done. New sent the first payment of $750,000 to Prevacus on January 18th, according to prosecutors, though the $1.7 million contract between Prevacus and Mississippi Community Education Center wasn't signed until January 19th. In the agreement, the drug company promised to use the funds to finalize development of the nasal application and conduct safety studies. In exchange, the nonprofit would get to pick the location for clinical trials and have exclusive rights to the manufacturing of the drug. But over the course of the next year, prosecutors say Nancy New and her son and assistant Zach New diverted funds from the nonprofit to Prevacus and its spin-off company Presol MD, not as a philanthropic grant, but as a personal investment. Presol MD claimed it was developing a cream to prevent concussions. Prosecutors produced a physical stock agreement to back up their allegations that the News intended to profit off of welfare money. February 2019. Throughout 2019, while Bryant's welfare department and the Families First for Mississippi program was bleeding funds and providing the state virtually no bookkeeping, Bryant texted with Favre and Ben Landingham about the company's progress. We couldn't be more happy about the funding from the state of MS, Favre texted the governor in early February. Wow. In fact, Nancy New is going to meet with Joe Cannizzaro at Tradition the following week. Bryant responded to this text by urging Favre to keep looking for funding. He also said he would let the athlete know when he found them a partner. To explain Bryant's claim that he was unaware Prevacus was receiving state funds, the former governor said he didn't read the text carefully enough. Bryant said he was often so busy he didn't register the content of messages people sent when they wanted something from him. He said he often shot back canned responses without much thought. I just simply did not carefully look at those texts and realize the intent in them, Bryant said. And I know that's hard to believe, and I know people read it and say, well, of course he knew, but I'm telling you, I just did not realize the details within those texts. Favre's friendly relationship with the governor ensured he and his business partner maintained Bryant's ear. Keep me close with the governor, Ben Landingham texted Favre. Favre also remained in contact with Director Davis. A couple months after their meeting, Favre told Davis that he still owed $1.1 million on his commitment to help build the new volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi. Any chance you and Nancy can help with that? Favre texted Davis. You and Nancy stuck your neck out for me with Jake and Pravakis, I know, and that's going to turn out very good, I believe. In April, the governor contacted the Hattiesburg military post Camp Shelby on behalf of Pravakis, text show, after Van Landingham posed the idea of securing funding from the US Department of Defense to test the concussion drug on National Guard trainees. We'll pave the way, Bryant wrote. Then Landingham texted 3 days later to tell Bryant and Favre that his call with Camp Shelby's commander was a success and that they'd scheduled another briefing. He thanked the governor. Like I've said, Jake, Favre texted, the governor can get done. Just making holes in the line, Bryant responded. July 2019. By July, however, the investigation into Davis and MDHS spending had begun, and Van Landingham was having a harder time getting clear answers from New about when they could expect to receive their next installments of grant funds. At the same time, Favre continued to complain to Van Landingham about his debt in the volleyball facility, which he expected New and Davis to pay off. Favre was worried about the lack of cash flow, previously telling Van Landingham he was not sure if Nancy and John can keep covering for me. The scientist and Favre were also trying to get New to invest in the separate concussion cream project, but the welfare well seemed to be drying up. The athlete turned to Bryant. Hey Governor, we are in a little bit of a crunch, Favre wrote in mid-July 2019. Nancy New, who is wonderful and has helped me many times, was going to fund this pregame cream that we can be selling really soon. Well, she can only do a small portion now. Jake can explain more, but bottom line, we need investors and need your direction. We'll get with Jake, the governor responded. We'll help all I can. By the end of that month, Bryant had replaced Davis as director of MDHS with former FBI Special Agent Christopher Freeze. I heard John Davis retired. Shit. Then Landingham texted Favre in August of 2019. He asked Favre about the new guy Freeze. Nancy said he ain't our type, Favre wrote. Fuck, then Landingham responded. Well, we may need the governor to make him our type. Freeze recently told Mississippi Today that after Bryant appointed him to take over the welfare department, they discussed the ongoing investigation, and the governor always implored Freeze to do the right thing. Around the same time, though, Freeze said Bryant called him to his office to meet with New and Favre so they could pitch Freeze on a project related to the University of Southern Mississippi that they wanted MDHS to fund. Freeze said he couldn't remember the details of the project, but the conversation didn't go far because the director told New that MDHS had implemented an official bidding process, called a request for proposals, a standard government practice that MDHS hadn't followed since 2012. Freeze said he told New and Favre that if they wanted an MDHS grant, they'd have to submit a proposal and the department would score it.
How much money is missing since 2012?
That's what I was just thinking.
Right? It's the questions that you ask, right? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Because this is just like 3 years worth of money. 4 years, 3 years. Damn. Sorry, y'all. Y'all got anything? Goddamn. Mississippi, goddamn.
Nah, this is just wild. And how, I don't know why, I don't understand how this could even be a thing. I just don't understand how you go from having oversight or a process where, you know, you have to like submit a proposal, and there's like paperwork, there's like a track record to that people could actually see how this money is being like, you know, given out, or, you know, it like there has to be somebody that this goes through, you know what I'm saying? Versus like, we shut that down, and for like 7 years, you could just come into my office, we can have drinks, and we're gonna dole out this federal money. Like, how the fuck does that work? Like, we doing this like this is fucking what's that show? The Mad Men?
Mm-hmm.
Like this some 1950s,
Yep.
you know, backroom meeting. We're gonna give out the welfare money. Who wants some?
Yep. Yep. Facts. Facts. Woo, all right. Keep going. We're almost done with this one.
After the meeting, Freeze said, New asked if she could come by his office to get the ball rolling on the project. He told her no. In the 6 months Freeze was head of Bryant's welfare department, he said the discussion about the project New and Favre proposed to MDHS was the most substantive conversation he had with the governor. Between requests for funding for the volleyball facility and the concussion project, then Landingham and Favre tried to tread delicately to make sure they weren't badgering their benefactors. Their communication suggests that the governor, at least they perceived, was the one with the power to bestow them with public funding. I know you're stressed about USM money from governor for volleyball facilities, then Landingham texted Favre in mid-October. We still need the last $380K agreed for Provacus 2. Is there a play left with governor, or should we let it go? Should I contact Nancy New, or does that mess you up? Ask Nancy if that's something the governor can okay, Favre responded. He is about out, then Landingham wrote, referring to the end of Bryant's term. Maybe better for us when he is. December 2019. By December 2019, as Bryant neared his last month as governor, he began talking more seriously about elevating Provacus, telling Van Landingham that Cannizzaro was interested in investing $100,000. He was also working with former President Donald Trump's White House to host a summit about youth brain safety featuring Provacus. Bryant told the scientist, "Trump love us." Then Landingham asked Bryant by text in early December, "Governor, can we bring you on board with ownership now?" The scientist and governor did not discuss, at least by text, Bryant investing his own funds into Van Landingham's venture. The conversations involved Bryant becoming a shareholder in exchange for the help he provided as governor and planned to provide after his term. Cannot till January 15th, Bryant wrote, referring to his first day out of office. But would love to talk then. This is the type of thing I love to be a part of. Something that saves lives. A week before Bryant finished his term in office, Favre again encouraged Van Landingham to offer the outgoing governor a package that will get him determined to see it through. On January 16, 2020, 2 days after leaving the mansion, Bryant began plotting his next meeting with the scientist. Now that you're unemployed, I'd like to give you a company package for all your help, Van Landingham texted. Let me know when you come up for air, but know we want and need you on our team. Sounds good. Where would be the best place to meet? I am now going to get on it hard, the former governor responded. In a text with another Provacus partner, Van Landingham indicated his intent was to cut an equity deal with the governor to join Provacus/Presol MD. Van Landingham, who defended the governor and his dealings with him, told Mississippi Today that Bryant never ended up obtaining shares in his company. The governor was always straight up. There was never any stock exchanged. There was never any money exchanged. He just wanted to help, Van Landingham said. And we never did a deal for him to come on with his consulting firm, and that could be because the arrests, happened. We were probably working towards having the governor, post-governorship, help us, and I think that would have been great. Bryant maintains that he never intended to accept the shares Van Landingham offered on 3 occasions. I think that the important part here. Would I trade a future with this firm? Would I give up 30 years of integrity over some paper? Over some stock of a company that barely existed? Why would I do that? I'd have to be out of my mind to do that. After he left office, Bryant spoke with Provacus, as he said he would, but he told Mississippi Today that his instincts told him not to move forward. At the end of the conversation, I said, no. Nope. This would not be the right thing to do, and am not going to be a part of it. But Bryant's texts paint a different picture about his departure from Provacus. In reality, he talked about helping Van Landingham all the way up until the arrests. February 2020. On February 4th, 2020, Bryant scheduled a meeting for February 12th at Tradition, where Van Landingham could pitch Cannizzaro on investing in Provacus. Bryant wrote, "If Brett could come, it would seal the deal." Meanwhile, on the same day, officials in Hinds County were filing indictments against Bryant's former welfare officials. Before Bryant and Van Landingham had a chance to meet again and seal the deal, as Bryant put it, the state auditor's office arrested New, Davis, and 4 others the next day. White investigated the case and did not turn information over to the FBI until it made the arrests, according to the local U.S. Attorney's Office at the time. The auditor has explained that his office made the arrests as soon as it had enough evidence against the welfare officials in order to stop the flow of funds out of MDHS. The federal government, on the other hand, has brought no charges. It's unclear if a federal investigation into the welfare scandal is ongoing, as both the Jackson offices of the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office would not comment. Bryant told Mississippi Today he has not been interviewed by state or federal investigators. Since the 2020 arrests, White has called Bryant the whistleblower in the case, though the fraud tip White says Bryant turned over to his office pertained to a small portion of the larger welfare scheme, according to Mississippi Today's review of early investigative materials and interviews. Bryant claimed in texts he sent after the arrests that he was unaware Provacus had received welfare funds. "Is this your company mentioned in the second paragraph?" Bryant texted Van Landingham on the day of the arrests with a screenshot of a news article. Van Landingham said yes, that he'd been subpoenaed and just gave them everything. "Not good," Bryant wrote. 5 days later, after a tidal wave of news coverage about the scandal, Bryant texted Van Landingham to abruptly cut ties with the company. "I was unaware your company had ever received any TANF funds," Bryant texted at 8:37 a.m. on February 10, 2020. "If some received anything of benefit personally, then legal issues certainly exists. I can have no further contact with your company. It is unfortunate to find ourselves at this point. I was hoping we could have somehow helped those who suffer from brain injuries. This has put that hope on the sidelines." That same morning, Auditor White appeared on a conservative talk radio show that is broadcast statewide to reveal the identity of the whistleblower in the welfare scandal. "That person in this case was Governor Phil Bryant," White said. He said he was comfortable letting that information out now.
They've got 6 back there, including Reggie Corner. Rolling out like Solomon talked about. Favre. Hit as he throws. That's an interception. It's picked off by Florence. Another pick, the 18th for Brett Favre, who is down and in pain. Boy, was he drilled from behind.
They tried to, with the pick. Yeah, and they tried to get him out of the pocket, tried to get him out of...
The next question is, I'm curious how the low percentage of applicants receiving welfare funds during the scandal compares to previous years. Was it the trend of the agency to approve less than 10% of applicants for assistance prior to the scandal? This is a really good question, and I actually made a graph for this a while back that I'll show here. So back in 2017, there was a big story in the newspaper about how the state had denied almost 99% of people applying for welfare the previous year. What those stories didn't do a good job of explaining was how we got here. Kind of made it seem like 2016 was an outlier year when in reality, the precipitous drop in approved TANF cases happened in 2010, actually just before Phil Bryant became governor. Now, this is assuming that the numbers that DHS reported are correct, but from 2008, which is the earliest data we could retrieve from the federal government, to 2010, we were receiving between 1,800 and 3,000 TANF applications each month and approving between 600 to 1,200 of them, so between 20 to 30%. In 2010, actually you can pinpoint it to just a couple of months, May and June of 2010, approved applications significantly dropped from 875 one month to 48 the next. And then the number just stayed down. So in 1 month in 2017, the agency approved just 5 applicants for welfare. And then in May of 2017, the month after that story came out, the number of approved applications started to tick back up dramatically to around 400. What's interesting is the number of people on the program, the caseload, and the amount that we spent on TANF cash assistance didn't vary to that degree in those years. The roles were always steadily decreasing, and as you can see in the chart, you didn't see that precipitous drop of application approvals reflected in the caseload or the actual spending of cash assistance. And that's never been explained to me. I've tried to ask the department, about as many different ways as I could think of, but they never have provided an answer to that.
Yeah. Did you see that month where they only approved 5 people in Mississippi?
It's like, it's not like this shit has just been like swept under the rug. Apparently they've been reporting on how this shit just does not add up. And it took this long for this shit to come to light.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said in the beginning, this cannot be the first time.
Mississippi is probably not the only state. It sounds like somebody needs to be audited. The whole DHS.
Sound like everybody need to be audited.
All these states need to be audited.
If y'all have ever spent any time in a DHS office anywhere across America and seen somebody get denied with like 4 kids with them, like, it just breaks my heart knowing like Brett Favre could have like access to millions with a text message. And these people, they got to run all over. You got to go to the Secretary of State. You got to find the birth certificate. You got to find a Social Security card. You got to do everything.
Extreme poverty increased by much more in the Great Recession than we would have expected. And all the evidence suggests that that's due to welfare reform.
Food stamps, housing, and healthcare outlays are up, but welfare checks have shrunk so much that the very poorest single-parent families receive 35% less than they did before Welfare to Work began. And there's another major problem for welfare recipients right now: significantly reduced funding for job placement and training. After being told that work as a waitress would be on and off, undercover sociologist Mary Gatta took the all-important class in how to find a job training program.
At the end of the class, they said, well, unfortunately, we've run out of training dollars. So you'd have to wait until the next cycle.
You mean the class was literally about what training was available, and then there turned out to be none?
Yeah, there turned out to be no funding.
I applied for the training in May, but they were not with funds at the time.
At the Boston Center, Vanessa Cooper also was stymied after the training prep class.
It was pretty frustrating waiting for funding that wasn't there.
Neil Sullivan has run job placement for the poor in Boston for more than 30 years.
We were much better off in the late 90s when the federal investment in welfare reform and job training for welfare recipients was enormous as compared to the pittance the federal government is able to invest these days.
The result is welfare recipients languish in the system, and many others are rejected from the system and left to make it on their own, and quite frankly, they don't.
Unless, of course, you're Brett Favre, in which case you just hit the governor and they'll shoot you a few mil.
Some survival type money. Like, no, you're going to invest in some shit where I expect to get $20 million out of it. But a fucking single mother with a few kids, you in that office, and because you don't have the right documentation, and they're gonna tell you they can't approve your shit, and then you don't even have a fucking car. Like, you got to take the bus with your kids, go across town, and then maybe in a week or so come back to that same fucking office, and you might still get denied because apparently they're not giving out the bread. So.
And if you do find a program that can help you, that program can dry up the next year because they don't get funding because all the money's going to Brett Favre and the WWE dude and her fuck off son and shit like that. Like, y'all, I'm telling you, there's more to this story. We didn't get into the rest of the money. They was just talking about the Brett Favre money.
Yeah, I heard that DiBiase. Isn't it Ted DiBiase, his son?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The $1 Million Man from this is some wild ass shit.
He's talking about the nigga with the dollar bills. I'm the $1 Million Man. Yeah, chilling with Brett Favre, getting welfare money. My bad.
The $1 Million Man, and his son is a welfare queen.
On this special report, we take a look at the $1 Million Man's revelation.
What I'm talking about, Okerlund, is I have bought and paid for my own personal slave.
Slave, wait a minute, this is 1988. What are you talking about, slave?
Listening to Reset Race, you now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, put them back on the grill again. We grilling them, back on the grill again. We grilling them, You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to US Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redline and lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one. Cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire. Anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country. To win, you need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.